Maybe you could never had a dream. A statue with a head of gold. It took a blow to the feet. It came crashing down to the floor. It was a great big stone. It was a rock made without hands. It was a kingdom come.
Well, welcome back to Philosopher Rock and a combined show with 4550 RPM. This is episode 19 and it is part 2 of our Birmingham UK music special, Rum Music with Aussie Ade. Now, if you haven't heard part 1, go back and have a listen. It's in our catalogue there on YouTube. It'll be episode 18. But in this episode, we're going to be talking to Aussie Ade again about all things Birmingham, all things Brum. We're going to kick off with a few more cultural highlights of the city of Birmingham. And then we're going to discuss these bands, some in detail, some just in passing. So we're going to talk about Joan Armatrading, Judas Priest, Dexys Midnight Runners, Duran, UB40, Fine Young Cannibals. We'll give a passing mention to the Beat, the Nightingales, Steel Pulse, Toyah, Wilcox. And we're going to finish on the band that you've heard on our introduction there, and I think we'll play a song of theirs for the outro. A great Birmingham product, and a band that Ade and I have in common because we both know these guys, lovely people, Dissident Prophet. So we'll finish there. So let's get started on Brum Music Part 2 with Aussie Ade. Well, here we are again, back on Philosopher Rock and 4550 RPM. I'm your host, GK, and this is part 2 of all things Brum Music with Aussie Ade. We're going to talk a bit about Birmingham. So I have Aussie Ade on the line with me now. So, all right, Bab, how you doing?
G'day, GK. I'm going all right.
It's good to have you back, mate. We got some good responses from part 1. So let's see if we can, let's see what we can do with part 2. A lot of people have seemed to you've hit a chord with discussions about all things Birmingham and Brum and, those cultural things. So I want to ask you, you got a few things to add in that regard before we hit, topics of a music nature.
Yeah.
Now, I've heard about the Black Country, but I can't say I know what it is. So there've been a couple of questions about that or comments. So can you explain what that is?
Okay. I might need to back up a bit and just explain about the West Midlands first and then go into the Black Country. So here we go. So the West Midlands is a region in central England. Birmingham is the largest city in that region. And then you've got Coventry, which is another city about 20 miles from Brum. And that's known for its medieval history, World War II bombing, and the car industry. Musos from Coventry would be the Specials, the Selector, Hazel O'Connor, and the film composer Clint Mansell, who you might know, or folks out there might know. And he was also in a band from Stourbridge called Pop Will Eat Itself. So there's a...
Oh, yeah, I've heard them.
Yeah, okay. And then there's also Dudley, which is a town 25 miles away from Brum. And that's known for its history in the coal and iron production. And they have a really nice zoo. And Dudley Musos would be the Wonder Stuff, although more Stourbridge again. But Stourbridge Town is close to Dudley Town. So a lot of folks from Dudley are kind of connected to Stourbridge. Stoke-on-Trent, a city 44 miles away from Brum. It's famous for ceramics, pottery, and take that to Robbie Williams. So that's 44 miles away, but still in the West Midlands. Wolverhampton, we've mentioned a few times in part 1, is a city 26 miles away from Brum. It's known for manufacturing, and musos from Wolverhampton will be the Mighty Slade, and also acclaimed R&B singer Beverly Knight, Babylon Zoo, and Dexys Kevin Rowlands was born in Wolverhampton before moving to Birmingham, and Dexys is a Birmingham band. And so the West Midlands also includes rural areas like Shropshire and Warwickshire, Warwickshire being the home of Shakespeare. So the West Midlands region combines cities, industry, and countryside and towns.
Were you here early enough to see that coffee ad on Australian TV that mentions Shropshire?
No, I don't think so.
It goes back a bit, back when we could have a bit of a laugh before we ever got censored. It's just one of those funny ones. I might dig it out and send it to you if I can find it somewhere. It's pretty funny.
Could you reach that for me? No, the Macona. Mochaquina. I'm into something slightly more exotic. Like where you're from.
Really? Shropshire? Oh, how wonderful.
It's not funny.
Macona Mochaquina.
Very exotic.
It's a funny one, and I'm sure 90% of Australians had no idea where Shropshire was.
So hopefully I've explained what the West Midlands is, and now we're going to go to the Black Country. And the Black Country is a region inside the West Midlands, so a region inside a region. And Black Country got its name due to the smoke and soot from coal mines and factories during the Industrial Revolution. So the pollution made the area appear black from a distance, and the name stuck, and the locals still use it with pride. So I guess the Black Country has a few things that Birmingham doesn't. Okay, here we go. Check this out. Stronger accents. So the Black Country accent is more distinct with its own unique phrases. So if the Birmingham accent is up to 10 in volume, I'd say the Black Country accent is up to 11. It's got industrial heritage. It's got a deep connection to coal mining and ironworks. There's an open-air museum called the Black Country Living Museum, which showcases the region's industrial past. And the Black Country folks have got a lot more local pride. They've got a strong sense of regional identity tied to working class history. I think a lot of people from Birmingham don't want to associate themselves with Birmingham sometimes when they're not in Birmingham. But a Black Country person would always be proud of being from the Black Country. And I guess Birmingham will be more cosmopolitan with a broader range of attractions. And going to attractions, I think I covered the library, the museum, and something else last time. Part one. The canals, yeah, sure. I'll mention a few on my list here. So I've got Symphony Hall and Town Hall. So Birmingham Town Hall is a Grade 1 listed building. It opened in 1834. One of Birmingham's oldest and most historical significant concert venues. It's known for its grand neoclassical architecture. Hosts a wide range of performances and orchestral music and to political events. Charles Dickens gave public readings there early on, and it was closed and restored through most of the 2000s, and now works along Symphony Hall for various cultural events. So jumping onto Symphony Hall, that opened in 1991. It's famous for its excellent acoustics, and it's home to the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, the CBSO, who I mentioned in part one. I guess you could say they were the house band there. So it hosts classical, jazz and popular music concerts there. I've seen film composer Michael Nyman play there. I've seen a few other people there as well, including the CBSO. And let's go the Rotunda building. I can't miss out the Rotunda building. So the Rotunda is an iconic part of Birmingham's skyline, particularly for me growing up. It's obviously a distinctive cylindrical building in the city centre. It was completed in 1965. It stands 42 metres tall. It was originally designed as office space, but it underwent major renovation in the noughties and now offering residential apartments with panoramic views of the city. Before its renovation, Coca-Cola had a big neon sign around the top of the rotunda and also a digital clock on there. So when you were in the city, you could always look up and see what time it was. I thought that was pretty cool.
Super advanced.
All right, let's go Soho Mill. Right, so Soho Mill is about 5 miles from the city centre, and it's a mill closely connected to J.R.R. Tolkien. So as a youth, Tolkien lived nearby, and the mill and its rural surroundings inspired his vision for the Shire in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. At the time, the peaceful countryside with its streams and mill helped shape the idyllic settings for Hobbinton. Tolkien spent time playing in the area, and places like Sehol Mill, Moseley Bog, and nearby woods influenced his writings. There's also 2 towers, not exactly near Sehol Mill, closer to the city, but that's another story. That would have inspired Tolkien as well. Today, Sehol Mill has a small museum celebrating Tolkien's connection to the area. We used to live just down the road from the mill and used to visit the area pretty much daily, particularly when our son was young. But a lot of the area's kind of built up, but you've still got the mill and some fields. There's a river, the River Cole, that runs nearby there, and it's some really nice paths to walk along there.
Well, I was going to, if I can just jump in here, I was going to say, like I used to live near the real Hobbinton.
No, you didn't.
No, I did. No, listen, I did. The one that's on the film, because we're at the film in New Zealand. So I'm a Sydney boy. I was born in Sydney, but I spent a lot of time in New Zealand, grew up there as a kid. Me and my mates, when we got cars that could drive, we used to go to Matamata hot springs, hot pools there, and had no idea that so many years in the future that would become the Shire for the setting of the film.
Wow.
So I did live there, well, near there. So there you go.
That's pretty good.
Bit of a story I can chuck in there.
There's another connection for us.
There's another connection, but I got to tell you, I have never read the books, right? I really couldn't quote the books, but I've watched the movies.
Yeah.
And only once, and I won't be back to watch them again.
Okay.
Oh, probably lost a lot of listeners there.
Well, I like the films, and I've watched them a few times.
All right, well, together we'll have a marathon, and I'll fall asleep.
Okay. All right, I'll give you one more. King Kong statue. So there was a 5.5 meter, which is 18 foot tall, fiberglass statue of King Kong, and it was commissioned in 1972, and it displayed in, I think it's the Manzoni Gardens near the Bullring in the centre of Birmingham, and it was also displayed elsewhere in Birmingham. So yeah, I don't know the reason why. This statue was built by a guy called Nicholas Monroe, I believe, and it was just there. It wasn't tied into any of the King Kong films or anything like that. Anyway, he ended up getting moved around a bit, and he went up to Edinburgh, and he was painted tartan at one point, and then later shocking pink at a market area. Then he went to Penrith and was painted white, I believe, and then he went to Leeds and was restored and repainted, and now it's in the owner's garden in Cumbria. And also the image of the statue featured extensively in a 2020 documentary film called King Rocker about Robert Lloyd from another Brummie band called the Nightingales. And it actually was recreated in 2022. And this was actually a 7 meter, so it's about 23 foot tall version of the statue was created with the original artist's blessing to coincide with the Commonwealth Games that were held in the city. So that's pretty cool. I'll stop now.
No, that's cool. No, they're very, very interesting. All right. We'll move on to the rest of the show now. We're going to talk about some Birmingham bands. And I will say again, Birmingham region, in case, we're stepping on toes here, but we'll move on to that.
Yeah, okay.
So I want to talk about another artist from Birmingham. I don't know how big she is in the United States, but she certainly was very big here. And I just say, I just scratch my head and say, I don't know why this lady isn't bigger worldwide. Joan Armatrading. So she was born in St. Kitts, but I think, technically St. Christopher and Nevis, in 1950. And age 8 moved with her family to Birmingham. When she was a kid, she taught herself to play guitar on one that her mother had got in exchange for a couple of prams from a pawn shop in Birmingham. So Americans call prams buggies, baby buggies, I think. Like Australia, New Zealand, UK, we all know what a pram is, but we better... do you think I'm right there?
Yeah, there's actually a Birmingham band called Pram that were around at some point. So they've got a name check there. I've got them on the list, so there we go.
Pram, there you go.
Yeah.
So exchanged a couple of prams for a guitar, and her mother did that at a pawn shop in Birmingham. And like by the age of 16, she was already performing publicly. She did a concert, something to do with her brother at Birmingham University. Her first album, Whatever's For Us, was released in 1972. And, she's since gone on to release numerous albums. I think her later albums, she's got her own recording studio. It's right to say she produces her own albums. Her 1980 release, Me, Myself, I, was her biggest success in the USA, UK, and here in Australia. I remember it was very big. And the title track was used in an Australian movie of the same name starring Rachel Griffiths. Aussies will know who that is. And incidentally, Chris Spedding contributes some guitar work to that album. Like he's a UK product, and he's known as a very well sought after session player. Her last successful single, and I think it might have been her biggest, was Drop the Pilot, from the 1983 album, The Key. Now that album and that song, again, very, very huge here in Australia and New Zealand. It was number 11 in the UK, 12 in Ireland, reached number 6. This is the single I'm talking about. Reached number 6 in both Australia and New Zealand. But how about this? Was number 1 in South Africa. So, a lot of love for Joan Armatrading in South Africa. She has received many honours and lots of nominations, like twice nominated for Grammy and Brit Awards, 1980, 1983, 1987. Another Grammy nomination in 2007 for Best Contemporary Blues Album. And she did win a BBC Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016. So, she's sort of blues, jazz, rock, pop, a lot of styles and a lot of blends, and a fantastic voice. One of the great voices that come out of the Birmingham scene and the UK in general. And she's still releasing albums. As recent as 2021, she released an album called Consequences. So she's got a long-standing career.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever get the Beano in Australia?
I know
the comic, the Beano comic. Yeah,
Yes, I know.
So she appeared in the Beano comic in the 80s. Yeah, if you do a web search, you'll find it. But she, I remember having that comic. I didn't know who she was at the time, and then I kind of found out.
it's a bit of a mystery to me why she's not bigger, because she's very, very good voice, lots of different styles, lots of blends, lots of very deep personal songs, mostly about love, lost and love and things like that, that I think, that will resonate with people. So I'm just wondering why she isn't bigger. But anyway, I've said that enough. Let's move on to something else. Okay, let's now go to Judas Priest. Judas Priest were formed in Birmingham in 1969. And when you include Black Sabbath and half the members of Led Zeppelin, and you realise that they all hail from the Birmingham area, a good argument can be made in favour of Brum being the birthplace of heavy metal. That's how I see it. You might see it differently, and if so, let me know in the comments below. Over the long life of the band, Judas Priest has released some 19 studio albums, beginning with 1974 release Rock-a-Roller and up to the present day, their 2024 release called Invincible Shield. Now, because of their long history and number of releases, this will be a very brief mention of one of the best-known Brum region products. They're often referred to as the pioneers of the new wave of heavy metal, or new wave of British heavy metal, and have influenced a number of genres like speed metal, thrash, power metal, amongst others. They're also seen as influencing the fashion of the heavy metal scene with the use of leather and studs and all those things Judas Priest, but perhaps this also came, of course, out of the punk scene. Their 6th studio album, British Steels, was perhaps the one that put Judas Priest on the map, and also the one that stamped them as leaders of the so-called new wave of British heavy metal genre. This album certainly had a huge impact on me and the band I was in. We're playing covers from their albums British Steel, Point of Entry, and Screaming for Vengeance. And I think we ended up with about a quarter or to a third of our song list being Judas Priest covers. And I can tell you that back in the day, in the more very heavy venues which we played,
That went down a treat.
Judas Priest has had a number of lineup changes, and I think at present it is only the bassist Ian Hill who is an original member since 1969, but their best-known vocalist Rob Halford is still with them, having joined in 1973, and guitarist Glenn Tipton has been with them since 1974. Now, a number of members have also died from their huge list of former members, but among the notable ones, John Hench, a drummer who was a member from 1973 to 1975, passed away in 2021. David Holland, another drummer, he played on all three albums I mentioned earlier, British Steel, Point of Entry and Screaming for Vengeance, and others, was with Judas Priest from 1979 to 1989 and died in 2018. Judas Priest have been nominated and received numerous music-related awards, and perhaps controversially, in 2022 they received the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Award for Musical Excellence. Now, according to Joel Peresman, the president of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, this award gives us flexibility to dive into some things and recognise some people who might not ordinarily get recognised. Let me read what Judas Priest vocalist Rob Halford had to say about that. And now I will post a link to this article. Quote, all this considered, the metal god himself, Rob Halford, has mixed feelings about the induction of Judas Priest, who will receive the Musical Excellence Award this year as opposed to the Standard Performers Award like Priest Fears Black Sabbath were honoured with, though he does still think it's overall a good thing for metal. Halford told the Arizona Republic, some days I go, no, it doesn't matter. We're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Be grateful. Shut the hell up. And then there are other days where I'm like, damn, why did they give us a Musical Excellence Award? Because it sounds very, grandiose. The Musical Excellence Award reserved for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to be with a bunch of musicians over there that have got the performance or whatever it is that they've got. Halford continued wondering, why haven't they given us the same title as all of our friends? Black Sabbath, for example. There's a different tag, isn't there? I was pissed. I was a bit pissed. At the end of the day, does it matter? I know it's silly, but it's just frustrating. And on the other side, it's like, great, everybody else got that, and we got shafted with this. Laughs. Judas Priest are still the Rodney Dangerfield of heavy metal. They can't get no respect. I don't know why they gave us a Musical Excellence Award. I have no clue. I just felt a bit like, well, Sabbath got this, so why can't we have that? Not that I'm jealous of Sabbath. I'm just talking about this tag that they give it. Why do they put these tags on the damn thing? Why don't they go, welcome, you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and leave it at that? Unquote. All right, so that's pretty interesting. I think I agree with him, by the way, on his reaction there. They should just be in the standard, or however you want to put it, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction and have done with it. I mean, they've contributed so much to the realm of music, heavy metal, hard rock, all of those tags, and they've been around for so long and they've influenced so many people. I mean, come on now. It is a bit ordinary, just my opinion. So to finish our segment on Brum region product Judas Priest, I will let you know that they're still touring with dates right now in October 2024, set for the USA and Japan. Sadly, I don't see them coming to Australia at this present time. I have never got to see them, which is a bit of a shame. Thankfully, I got to see Iron Maiden back in the day, and they've just left Australia as well. But yeah, we don't get them all down here like you people up there up on the other side of the world. It's quite common for you guys to be able to see all the great touring bands in the UK, USA, Europe, and even in South America sometimes. We're just too far away, I guess. We just don't get them down here as much as you guys do up there. But anyway, that's enough of my whinge. Let's move on.
All right, I should mention Steel Pulse, that they were an amazing reggae band.
Reggae, yeah.
And there's a song of theirs I've heard it played before Shazam. Heard it a few times ago. I've asked people, oh, what's this? And they go, oh, it's Steel Pulse. And I think, oh, I'm going to listen to that. I'll find out eventually who that is. And I'm going through all their catalogue, can't find the song, and can't have it either. And then we've got Toyah Wilcox. She's a well-known performer. She was in the metal scene. Yeah, Toyah, yeah. And she's been married to Robert Fripp for years, but she had a pop career in the 80s.
She did stuff like that. Her and Robert Fripp, so we know him from King Crimson.
That's it, yeah.
They do a weekly YouTube thing. Go and look at it. It's good fun. I'll have a lot of fun.
I think since the lockdown, something like that must have started.
Yeah. They're a lot of fun. They self-deprecating humour. It's worth going to look at. Toyah and...
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to Dexys Midnight Runners then. So they were a band formed in Birmingham in 1978.
So they're a new band.
And they had their unique... yeah, the lead singer's, I think he's 71 now, something like that. So yeah, pretty new. But they had a unique blend, or have a unique blend of soul and pop and Celtic influences. And, you know, everyone knows them from the song Come On Eileen. You know, that was an international hit. They were known for that energetic sound, you know, and they had the fiddle and the brass instruments. And so they were big for that. And they went through a lot of different style changes and lineup changes. But I want to go back to their debut album, Searching for the Young Soul Rebels, which I didn't listen to until our early 90s. I really liked how they showcased the sound from the 1960s soul music, and they had the contemporary punk energy going on. And at that time, there's a music video for Gino, which is a song about Gino Washington, an artist they loved who did soul music. And they had got an amazing music video that was shot all in and around Birmingham. You follow the band members. It is on YouTube. There's a scene where they're doing a lively club performance, and then you just got them hanging around Birmingham city centre, as I kind of remember it, and walking about, you know, the train station, all this stuff. And the clothes they're wearing, they wear this in this version of Dexys where I think the lineup had completely changed by the time they did the Come On Eileen stuff, but they had in the Gino video, and around that time they were wearing working class attire. I was watching a documentary, and it was described as waterfront chic, and on the waterfront chic being from the film, the 1954 film that was starring Marlon Brando on the waterfront. But I'm pretty sure my dad around this time had a similar look when he went to work, and other people's dads did too. But they worked in local car factories like British Leylands. So I didn't associate that look with Dockers, but I'm pretty sure my dad wouldn't have known who Dexys were at that time. Or
here's a little fun fact for you. This will win you a prize somewhere. John Howard, our former Prime Minister, he was in office from 1996 to 2007. Had a long reign, very long reign. His favourite movie, as far as I remember, I don't know why I remember this, it just stuck in my head, was On the Waterfront.
Okay.
And I've never had a chance to tell that to anybody until
now.
There you go.
Yeah.
And now I'm telling the whole world.
But yeah, so the Dexys were kind of around that time. They you know, and particularly, you know, have a listen to Search for the Young Soul Rebels. I think it's probably their best album. But it was released during a time of social and political upheaval in the UK, and there was lots of strikes and different things going on. Dexys have been through many different looks and lineups changes, and you know, there's been periods where they haven't been active, but you know, they're still part of the UK music scene. And the lead man, Kevin Rowlands, is, as I said, he's now 71, and he's still got a great voice. And they played at the Commonwealth Games, the closing ceremony. They're pretty on top form. And my friend Andy Jennings, he saw them recently at a festival in Birmingham, was saying how good they were and how good Kevin Rowlands' voice is. So that's cool. Okay, so Duran. Again, another global bands. You know, they were formed in Birmingham. They're, you know, new wave, new romantic bands from 1978. You had keyboarder Nick Rhodes, you had bassist John Taylor, and they're known for singer Simon Le Bon. And there's also Gary and Taylor and drummer Roger Taylor. And all these Taylors are brothers, and they're known for their music videos and catchy melodies. They were pretty pioneering with their music videos in the 80s, and that really helped them with MTV. And they've filmed at least 3 music videos back to back for MTV, and they went to exotic locations. And that's kind of what they were known for. So like Rio and Hungry Like a Wolf and things like that.
They were big here. Not a band I listen to a lot, but they were on the radio here.
Yeah, totally. There was a club in Birmingham called the Rum Runner Club. And it was a key music venue. And they worked there. A few of the guys worked there. I think some of the bomb was at college or uni in Birmingham. So that's how he got involved in the band. It would have been Nick Rhodes and John Taylor that worked at the Rum Runner and helped promote stuff there. The Rum Runner was on Broad Street in Birmingham, which is like the main clubbing area, I guess. And there's a blue plaque outside of whatever it is now, where the Rum Runner was, mentioning Duran. And obviously, and they did a Bond movie. They had the song "Beauty Kill." That might have been their biggest hit, maybe in the US, because that was the number one Billboard Hot 100 kind of thing going on there. Before Simon Le Bon, there was they had a few vocalists. There's another guy who's from Birmingham called Stephen Duffy, and he was a singer before Simon Le Bon was introduced. And Stephen Duffy went off and did his own solo projects and was part of But in between that, I believe it's in between that, there's a guy called Andy Wickett who was a lead vocalist for Duran Duran before Simon Le Bon joined the bands, and he was in a band called TVI, and then he's got a band called World Service. Andy Wickett was totally into the new wave and the post-punk and the electronic stuff. But Andy Wickett wrote Girls on Film, and I think still today he hasn't got complete credit for that. But he left the bands before they had a big hit with Girls on Film, which is probably their first big hit. Maybe that's their biggest hit. I think if you go on Wikipedia now, I think he's mentions that Andy Wickett he's released his demo versions of Girls on Film more recently. And the funny thing with Andy Wickett is that he supported Dissident Prophet, my friend's band that I've been involved in, and also they've supported him in the past. And he's also almost appeared on a few recordings of Dissident Prophet as well. I think he did some harmonica and some hand clapping, but that's probably on unreleased stuff now. There we go. Anyway, so moving on from Duran Duran and Andy Wickett, I've got to tip my hat to the Beats. They were part of the two-tone ska revival of the late 70s and 80s, and they're still going today. And I believe one of your boys and his wife saw them recently.
No, it was my son and some of his mates. I think Isle of Wight. And because he spent a lot of time in the UK now. Like I said, he's lived there twice. And I think it was when he was living the first time, him and his couple of his mates were on the Isle of Wight, and they were walking down he told me they were walking down the street and looking for something to do, but it was sort of mid to late afternoon, and they had this band playing in this club. And they said, oh, well, let's go in there and have a listen. So they went in there, and it was £5 to get in. So they, and he went in there and he said, you wouldn't believe it, and it was the Beat playing, and it was only £5. He said, so they were pretty darn good. And he just got to see the concert by fluke, you might say, because they weren't, they were just looking for something to do, and there it was. And it was an afternoon session at some club.
Okay. Yeah, UB40. Yeah, so they're known across the world. Reggae pop bands. Their hits like Red Red Wine, 1 in 10, and If It Happens Again. And they were the bands I mentioned earlier on about being multicultural lineup and socially conscious lyrics. And they brought reggae, I guess, to a wider audience. There's a plaque commemorating UB40's first concert at the Hare and Hounds in King's Heath in Birmingham. And UB40 had their own record label, The Death International, and a recording studio, and it was used to record and produce their own music. They also had a lot of other artists record there. The Death stood for Discount Entertainment Products. And everyone from Birmingham, I think, has got a UB40 story. They all know someone from the bands. And I guess mine, Brian Travers, who's the late saxophonist of the UB40, his parents moved in across the street from my parents. This would have been the 90s. He gave my sister a signed 12-inch copy of one of their singles, and he seemed like a thoroughly nice bloke. Yeah, so skipping past the Nightingales, Musical Youth, Apache Indian, and Napalm Death, you're going to jump to Fine Young Cannibals. And they were formed in 1984, and they've got the Beat connection because Andy Cox and Dave Steele were in the Beats, and they met Roland Gift, who was playing and performing in bands in the scene in Birmingham back in the early 80s. And they hit pretty much global stardom with their second album, Raw and the Cooked. And that reached number 1 in the UK album charts. And they had the song She Drives Me Crazy and A Good Thing. And they topped the Billboard Hot 100 in the US.
It was huge down here. Absolutely massive. It was just really flogged on the radio.
Yeah, and I really like their style and sounds, and I particularly like probably their first album, and I love Johnny Come Home. That's probably one of my favourite songs. That'll be in my Desert Island disc. Yeah, and it's kind of weird. They took a long hiatus after the second album and pursued solo careers and things like that. But their music appears on films and TV shows, and I even Roland gifted some acting as well. Actually, I once saw Roland gift at a supermarket checkout in King's Heath in Birmingham. That's Fine Young Cannibals.
So I guess we'll move on a bit now, coming to the end of our back end of our show here. I wanted to talk about Dissident Prophet because this is the Birmingham band, and this is the reason that you and I initially met. Those years ago, was through Dissident Prophet. So just briefly give our listeners a brief history of the band, then tell us a bit about your relationship with them, and then an album you can recommend that people will listen to, because that would be something we can do, because you guys sent me every CD that they produce, and I even have a T-shirt a Dissident Prophet T-shirt that I treasure to this day. And I hardly wear it's honestly, I've still got it. I still wear it on special occasions. And then I wash it separately from everything else so I can keep it in good condition. And that's fair income. I'm not exaggerating. One of my favorite T-shirts, and years old. So
I might have another one for you when I see you next year.
It's next year. Oh, you're right. Yeah, we are in next year. Okay.
Yeah. I'll try and sort something out there. Okay, so Dissident Prophet were an apocalyptic indie rock band from Birmingham. They started in early 1994, and they played their last show at the end of 2019. And over that time, they released 6 albums. When I was a teenager, I started going to a Christian fellowship that these guys, Andy Jennings and Tom Lydmore, had started going to as well. They were a bit older than me. I remember Andy sometimes getting up and playing a song he was working on at least 3 times over a period of a few months. And those songs would have been Be Set Free, Hanging Round Your Neck, and Unconditional Love. Mate, I was blown away by the lyrics and how direct they were. Andy and Tom formed a band with 2 other guys, John Large on drums and Smudge Smith on bass. I was there first gig and onwards. I thought they were amazing. After their second gig, they were signed to a new record label called NGL Granite. I believe founded by people in Duran's management. They quit their day jobs and became full-time band members. They went straight into recording with a top-notch producer at The Depth, which is UB40's recording studio at the time. And the band's Christian faith was at the core, although not Christian bands.
Yeah, but not a Christian band as such, but they are Christian members, right?
Yeah. I think, like I said before, Christian music is marketing term anyway. Tom was my guitar hero. I loved his innovative and experimental approach. Their sound was rooted in indie rock and punk and later more new wave influences. Their lyrics were often focused on themes such as social justice, faith and spirituality, and they aimed to challenge social norms with strong focus on activism. When it addressed global issues, drawing from biblical teachings to inspire positive change. As lead singer, Annie sometimes sounded like a Brummy Lou Reed. And so going back to Tom on lead guitar, being my guitar hero, I thought he, to me, sounded like Robert Fripp on David Bowie's 1980 album Scary Monsters. Tom's sound also reminded me of The Clash's lead guitarist Mick Jones a lot, and also Johnny Greenwood, the lead guitarist of Radiohead. Anyway, they gained a strong Birmingham following through live performances. Their debut single, Generation X, received acclaim with plays on BBC Radio 1, Virgin Radio, and MTV, all in the UK. They played around England, supporting acts like Babylon Zoo, Stiff Little Fingers, and another Birmingham band, Ocean Colour Scene. They got rave reviews in Melody Maker and Krang magazine, and some magazines that aren't around anymore. They also released Unconditional Love and Hanging Round Your Neck as singles. However, the record label went bust. I think the record label had signed too many artists too early. And the band lost the support needed for mainstream success or promotion, especially in the days before the internet and social media. The debut album was never promoted, and that was called We're Not Grasshoppers. So they went back to their day jobs and carried on as a band for a while. And then it kind of fizzled out. They got into other bands. Kind of Andy kept going for a bit. But then in 2001, the band regrouped with Colin Burton on bass. Hey, shout out to Colin. Colin, I missed you. Contact me if you hear this, or if anyone who knows him hears this. Colin Burton, love you. And then we've got Dave O'Dart on drums, and Melanie J joined the band on keyboards and vocals. In 2001, with the band lineup change, they decided to take the name Maccabees with the release of their 21st Century Spin album. In 2005, Robbie Maxwell replaced Dave on drums, and they released another album called Modern Man in that year. In 2006, original bass player Smudge and drummer John and Tom went to play for Wolverhampton's own Karina Round, and she toured the US following a record deal with Interscope. Tom and Smudge moved to Hollywood to work with Karina and Dave Stewart. Yeah, that Dave Stewart from the Eurythmics. So another Tom Rankin took over lead guitar duties for a few shows. And at the end of 2006, the band took hiatus again. In 2012, Dissident Prophet returned. Tom Livemore was back from Hollywood. Around this time, I got more involved and started using social media to promote the band, etc. The band calling themselves Maccabees had caused confusion with another indie rock band from Brighton called the Maccabees. In fact, I think the night your boy was supposed to meet up with the bands and I, which we mentioned in episode 18, part 1 of this podcast, both Maccabees bands were playing a gig in Birmingham City. I remember there being a lot of confusion that night, so I'm not sure if your boy got to the wrong.
He did get lost. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the first time he lived over there, and like now he's been over there for so long, he'd know his way around a bit better. But
so I think we were looking at new band names. Everyone remembers Dissident Prophet. Let's just go with that. For the fourth album, Weapons of Matter Section, which came out in 2012, there was Dissident Prophet again, and that followed with Red Moon Rising in 2015 and Strange Days in 2017. You can ask me which album I'd recommend?
Yeah, well, I think you go, and I can already guess. You're going to recommend the one I like best, but go right ahead.
Okay. I'd recommend 2015's Red Moon Rising. Although I love pretty much all their stuff, I think that album has the best collection of songs, which includes Human 2.0, Comfortable in Babylon, The Words, He Sat Down, and Broken. Which was actually a song from probably 1997 that finally got recorded and seen the live day. And the band played their last show together at the end of 2019. And that's because during the first COVID lockdown, Andy, Robbie and Tom became part of a small Christian fellowship that met in a house that used to be a Bible tract depot. And just to explain, a Bible tract is usually a small printed leaflet with a message of the gospel, usually Bible verses or teachings, etc. Just if you don't know what a Bible tract is. Anyway, during that time, Disco Funk Gospel Collective was formed, including Robbie, Andy, and Tom. And when they started doing that, they didn't want to Dissident Prophet anymore, and that's it. But I was saying that since then, Andy and Robbie have occasionally performed a few Dissident Prophet songs at acoustic events or open mic nights, and there's videos of these performances that can be found on YouTube, and it usually says Dissident Prophet there. So just if there's confusion where we go, no, they're still playing since 2019, but no, that's kind of how it is.
Before we move on, what's the Disco Funk Collective? What's that?
Oh yeah, so that
who is that? Yeah.
Well, definitely Andy, Robbie, and Tom are in there. Andy had always been keen on doing disco kind of funk music, and becoming part of this new fellowship that met in Bible Tract Depot. They called themselves a depot. So you can find them online. They haven't put any recordings out officially, but they're on social media, and they play locally to Birmingham as well.
So they're another Brum product?
Yeah. And then Andy and Robbie are in another band called the Black Fridays, and Andy's in another band that he was actually in before Dissident Prophet that have kind of got back together, called Hector's House. So Andy's like the Nicolas Cage of Birmingham music, as in Nicolas Cage wants to appear in every film.
Right.
Andy seems to be in every band at the moment.
Right. Nice.
So as you said, Dissident Prophet's not necessarily a gospel band or a Christian band, because as you said, that's a bit of a label that can be used for marketing. But I really encourage people to go and have a listen to them, because the music is good and the lyrics are, I'm going to say cutting, biting edge, not your typical, what you might be used to if people say gospel. So put that out of your mind. Yeah, and have a listen. So you mentioned you met them at a fellowship that you were both attending. Yeah, obviously you're a believer, so tell us a little bit about that before we finish up.
Yeah, sure. So I guess that's the most important thing, is that I know Jesus, and I don't often share this with people, so it's a good opportunity to do that. Thank you. So I believe Jesus Christ is the one in the Bible, the Jewish one, the Middle Eastern one, the one who is the way, the truth, and the life, the only way. He's it. He's everything. I'm not into churches with a capital C, or Christians with a capital C for that matter. But living down the south coast of New South Wales, I break bread in a small local Christian fellowship. And I know and believe Jesus is and was and who he said he was, Son of the Most High. I'm going to say the stuff in the Bible is real, all of it. If you're curious, the Bible wasn't written to us, but it was written for us. And it was given to us by the Creator, who lives outside of time. And it's definitely worth doing your own research.
All right. Well, Aussie Ade, I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you very much for coming on for a two-parter about all things Brum music, all things Birmingham and region. We didn't cover everything. So if you're listening and you're thinking, hey, why didn't you talk about this band? Let us know. We might never have heard of them, or whatever it is, we missed it. But yeah, so let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. But anyway, Ade, thanks for coming on. And I'll see you next year in person, and we'll get together and we'll definitely probably have a good yarn about this one. So for now, I'll say ta-ra, Bab.
Hooroo, mate.
Well, there you go. There goes Aussie Ade. Don't forget, if you like what you hear, if you like what we do here at Philosopher Rock and 4550 RPM, remember, like, subscribe, and share it. I'm your host, GK, and until next time, again, I will also say ta-ra, Bab, and hooroo.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him